Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Potastic Two.
Come zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Greetings, Poe fans. We are back for Poe Unplugged with the Cask of Amontillado.
So, yay! Too bad we don't have any booze, but okay. We're all sober for this one, I think. So okay.
I can actually go ask my husband because we do have a bottle of Amontillado.
There you go.
Oh, sorry, I can't virtually send it to people, but anyway. So, what did everybody think of the Cask of Amontillado? Who wants to begin?
It's like crickets chirping. I feel like I'm back in the classroom.
Yeah, this is nobody sits in the front row when you ask a question.
Exactly.
It's like, don't pick me.
I'm gonna go because I know my opinion differs from a lot of people on this one.
Okay,
Though I like this story, it is probably one of my least favorite stories of his. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I love the revenge. There's a lot of witty lines. It has a great image to it. For whatever reason, though, it lacks. Even though this is kind of like revenge done very cleverly, it kind of lacks that more like guttural rawness that, like, say, the Black Cat has, or the Telltale Heart. I'm trying to think of examples. But for me, I like it. I think it's a solid, good story. I mean, it's really quick. But yeah. I don't know. For me personally,
Okay.
No. So there you go. Sorry. Yeah. I know everybody else really likes this one. I know it's one of his most famous stories, but
yeah,
that's okay. I mean,
yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, I was giving Jeanie a hard time about some words with the mummy. Yesterday when we recorded our degree episode, because I almost made her read a quote from it again, but I was nice. But let's see, hold on. Let's see. Will, did you post? Let's see. Well, you said I'm drinking a kombucha, so I might get mildly tipped during the meeting. That's okay. When I reread it just a few minutes ago, I could definitely feel the pleasure the main character seemed to be taking in his revenge. Absolutely.
Yes, it's a great revenge fantasy. The story may not be as complex as the Telltale Heart or Hop Frog or others, but it's just the experience of the thing, the visceral experience of going down into the catacombs and the revenge and the walling up, which is so familiar to me because it happened on Dark Shadows at least 4 times.
Yes,
that's what I was thinking about.
And Night Gallery and Vincent Price movies and everything. So the walling up thing has been with me my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I was going to say, Jeff, I am about halfway through watching Dark Shadows. I started at about the time right before you came on the first time. Mm-hmm. And I've slowly watched a little bit here and there, and it's still just amazing to me. And I'm like, I don't want it to end, but it's going to take me a while. But anyway, I digress. Right. But Jeanie, were you going to say something? I thought you.
Well, I was just going to say that when we were discussing things the other day, I don't remember what it was, if we were doing the episode or everything kind of blends in anymore. Because I'm like, we talked Poe, so I don't know where we talked Poe or when, so who knows? Yeah. But I was just going to say that if we look at it, he definitely had some untapped issues when it come to walling things up. Because it's like every story has something to do with either covering something up, walling something up, or burying something.
Yeah.
It's like there's not one story that comes off the top of my head. And I'm not talking about his poems and all that. I'm talking about his actual short stories and stuff like that. There's always that underlining of whether it be an imaginary trapping of their own mind, mm-hmm. or it is a physical attribute of being buried alive, being walled up. It seems that was a theme that he had in his stories. So when we were discussing it, I was like, I wonder if that was like a true fear of his life, or that he himself felt trapped in everything.
Yeah,
Because
well,
I mean, think
I
about it. He
know.
never had really any choices from the time he was young. When he was 3, his mom died. Well, 2 years and 11 months.
Mhm.
So his mom died, and he got put into a foster home, and he really didn't have a choice in the matter. He got split from his brother and his sister. So when I think about it, when he started making his own choices, he even tried, in my opinion, tried to trap himself in his own life.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I mean, anybody else see that?
Well, I know he did have the fear of being buried alive, and I think that's what came out in his writing a lot, that kind of theory. But what you're saying is another level of it, and so
Mhm.
that's something to really think about. What does anybody else want to like add anything on that?
Well,
I agree with Jeannie. I
I'll
think, yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, so go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, you go ahead, Ollie. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with her. I definitely think maybe it was a little bit symbolic of how he was feeling. Plus, just, I mean, to hide a body by burying it is actually probably the most logical way to get rid of a body to have no evidence, too, or
Mhm.
lack of evidence for that time period. See, even today, like, people bury you in cement or something. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
You know,
Mark,
I was going to say that one of the people who I interviewed in the book was the late Wes Craven. And,
Mhm.
Wes said at one point that Poe didn't invent the fear, but he was great at tapping into it. He tapped in, he
Mhm.
didn't create the fear, but he understood it. And
Yeah.
one of the great fears of that time period was being buried alive. It wasn't
Yeah.
exclusive to Poe at all. This was a very, very common fear, especially at a time when, somebody could die of a number of things or appear to die of a number of things and come back to life, and
Yeah.
be buried alive. This was the start. They actually had these, tombs built where people could pull a cord if they came back to life, or, have some
Mhm.
kind of system built in. So this was kind of and obviously, I mean, the way Poe depicts it, not just in this way, I mean, in the premature burial and various ones that he writes about, the fall of the House of Usher.
Mhm.
This recurs all throughout his stories,
Yeah.
and in this case, it's not so much the fear of it, is that it's the almost the enjoyment of it, because Montresor is
Yeah.
having a good time
Yes.
in this. So, and if you're historically kind of looking at this story, it's kind of interesting because it's one of the pieces that ends sort of the golden era, his golden period of productivity. There's this period that starts around
Mhm.
1838 when he's in Philadelphia. He moves to Philadelphia and he starts working there. And this is when he kind of writes his greatest work. This is the work we really remember him for, is mostly written in Philly. And
That's true.
and then this period goes from about 1838 to about 1845. So, the Raven and the Cask of Amontillado are kind of the end of this golden era. It sort of it rounds it off. It's one of the major stories not written in Philadelphia, the Cask of Amontillado. And if you kind of look at historically, now this is kind of simplistic, you know, but everybody kind of looks like, who is he walling up? You know,
Mhm.
is it John Allen? Who's
Right.
who's he walling up there? Who's he thinking about? Well, he had just gotten through a huge feud with Thomas Dunn English when
That's
this story
true.
was done, and he had actually sued and won, taken English to court and sued him on grounds of libel, and he had won the case. And if you listen to his depiction of Fortunato, and he says, that he was a man to be feared, and English was a man to be feared, and so sometimes English becomes the primary candidate as to who's the revenge figure here, who's he walling up. Uh,
Mhm.
who's he working this on? I think that's kind of, undercutting the story a bit to sort of look for that. But
Yeah. Well,
But
and
that was really cool in your book when you mentioned that, because I had never heard that before. So when that came up, I was like, "Oh, how interesting!" Because I kind of, when I read his stories, I kind of just take them as separate stories, very different from his life. But I thought it was really interesting to get that little tidbit, which I was like, "Oh, interesting. Maybe it was him."
well, I'm not sure if it was or not, but it may have fueled the story. It may definitely have
Yeah.
given,
yeah.
fueled the story. But one of the things about this is that one of the reasons I like this story so much is because it's from an acting standpoint, it's a delicious piece to perform. It is
I bet.
is Poe was the son of actors. You always have to remember that. And he
Mhm.
wrote a small group of his stories, which are absolutely perfect acting monologues. The Telltale Heart is one.
Mhm.
Actors love to perform the Telltale Heart, and there's a very good reason. It's about 5,000 words. You can perform it in about 12, 15 minutes. It's a perfect piece. It's a perfect little monologue. And the Cask of Amontillado is like that. It's about 5,000 words. He tells you quite a bit, but he doesn't tell you everything. It's like
True.
Telltale Heart. He doesn't tell you, all the things you might want to know. And the leading thing you want to know, maybe in the Telltale Heart and the Cask of Amontillado, is who's he telling the story to?
Yes.
Who's he talking to? In the Telltale Heart, you never know. Is it the police? Is it the head of an asylum that he's talking to? Is it, who's he telling this to? Well, you don't know
Yeah.
this. And that's the great thing about theater is you give them so much, but you don't give them so much that you are explaining everything. You're showing them, and then you fill in the gaps. You say, "Oh, what do you think?" And so who's Montresor telling this to?
Exactly. And is he really the unreliable narrator once again? Because he's telling it from his perspective. Is that everything that went on? Especially from the very beginning when he says that basically Fortunato insulted him, his name. And it's like, he's really going to kill him over insulting his name. It's like, how bad was it?
Where does he set the story, though? I mean, he sets the story in
Right.
Venice. He sets the story in Italy, in Venice, where
Mhm.
there is a code of honor at stake
Yes.
here. And you see, and to us, we say, like, he's insulted. That's the reason he's going to kill this guy. Because
Right.
well, get over it, But for this would have been a primary reason. He gives this as, as Fortunato says, the 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I bore as I best could. But when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. As if that's all the other things he did, he may have done. He may have swindled him. He may have, but he insulted me. And he's saying it as if to say, you understand, you get it.
Mhm.
When he ventured upon insult, well, that was crossing a line. And, he's saying this as if you're going to understand this.
Right.
I think Montresor might be writing all of this down in a letter to be opened after his death, because he's now 50 years older and perhaps near death, and he can't resist being able to brag after death that he got away with a perfect murder.
That's
It's funny.
brilliant, Jeff. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's funny you said that. Around Halloween, I went to a performance where they did different Poe plays, and they actually did this one, and that's actually how the actors did it. That he was on his deathbed,
Oh,
and that was actually how he was like telling it, and they kind of showed you everything. So that's kind of
Very
cool.
cool.
I agree. As an actor, you have to make a choice. I mean, and you have to decide, even if you don't say what it is, in order to perform something like this, you have to make a choice. So when I perform the Cask of Amontillado, this is my choice.
Okay.
I believe he's talking to his confessor. He's in Venice. He's Catholic. And there's this wonderful Catholic out, which is you can do anything you want as long as you confess it on your deathbed. It's a free ticket to heaven, as long as you're absolved. It doesn't matter. You go in the booth, ding, you're out, you're saved.
Yes.
So I think he's talking to his priest. I think he's talking to his confessor. He's at the point he knows he's dying. He knows he's only got so much. Maybe he's already been given the last rites. And Jeff, as you say, he says, at the end of the story, for so many years, nobody has disturbed the bones.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, what's deceptive about this story is he is confessing. I think he's confessing. And I think this is, again, remember it's Venice, and remember Catholicism. But I think the other thing that, is that this is a deceptive story. I always say, that nothing stays buried in a Poe story. Well, actually, Fortunato does stay buried in this story.
Mm-hmm.
But to just say, you know, Montresor is enjoying himself and that and there's no price, it's not true. There are levels, especially at the end, where you sort of get, remember when he's talking about walling Fortunato up, and he says at one point, he kind of realizes what he's doing, and he says his heart grew sick.
Yeah.
He says it was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so. Well, does anybody believe that? Does anybody, you know, in Dark Shadows, the person who gets walled up does not stay buried. There's a price to pay for what they're doing. You know, even though the original character got walls up in Dark Shadows, Reverend Trask, who is as odious a character as they ever did, and you want him to get walled up.
Yes.
Eventually, you know, Barnabas pays a price for having done this awful thing, for doing this terrible thing. And I think he does too. I think he feels it. And at the end, he is confessing. And remember, the last line is, "En pace requiescat," rest in peace. I think he's talking about himself. I think in pace, everybody takes that line to mean almost sarcastically, he's talking about having just walled up Fortunato and saying, "In pace requiescat." I think he's talking about both of them. I really do think he's talking about himself as well. So, you know, again, but that's the genius of Poe. You know, everything I just said was made up here. You know, everything I just said was an actor's choice of how I choose to play Montresor, and you have to decide on motivation.
Yeah.
But that's what, you know, a good playwright does. You know, Poe never wrote he wrote one failed play, made an attempt to write one play, but he didn't write for the theater. And yet he had all of these theatrical instincts from his parents that he inherited.
Yeah.
I think he'd have made a brilliant playwright if he had lived into the next part of the century, and when Ibsen and Shaw and people and Strindberg all of a sudden say, no, remember, plays can be literature. Yeah. I think Poe would have been wonderful at it. He has all the instincts of a great dramatist. And this story and Telltale Heart are really wonderful proof of that. And to a lesser extent, I think The Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah.
You know, The Mask of the Red Death is a brilliant monologue. It's not a first person monologue. It's you know, but it is still, you know, it's powerful. You know, and that's not always true with Poe stories. You know, try to do The Fall of the House of Usher. First of all, The Fall of the House of Usher and The Pit and the Pendulum are much longer stories.
Yeah.
They take much more longer to read completely. But also, they take a while to get going, which is odd for Poe. You know, how long does it take for the guy to get to the House of Usher? You know, is that whole rambling beginning, you know, all right, we get to the point, you know, get it, go. Same thing with The Pit and the Pendulum. There's this kind of long preamble to it. But Cask of Amontillado and Telltale Heart, giddy up, go. You're right there. I mean, he just gets you going, you know, just right away. And you know, Telltale Heart's got that great opening of, you know, mad, why would you say I'm mad? You know, I mean, that's just right there. He's pushing your face into it. And the same thing with you know, he gets right to it in the Cask of Amontillado. There's no wasted words, no wasted paragraphs. Marvelous efficiency, you know. So anyway.
No, I totally agree. It's again, it's one of my favorites, and it just every time I read it, I feel like I get a little bit of new things that come out. Like one of the things that I actually listened to it on my way home today, and the reading was good, but they added, like when they were like in the catacombs, this like kind of echoing kind of sound to it. So I was having a hard time hearing it, but I know the story well enough that I could, you know, pick up everything. But one of the lines right before he finished walling Fortunato up was that I trembled. And I was like, okay, is he trembling with like excitement? Is he trembling with, why did I do this? And so I thought that was really interesting. I really paid attention to that line. And then for some reason or another, my next thing that I went to, as he was, you know, putting the plaster and, you know, putting the bricks on, I started thinking about it. Okay, now, yes, he did chain Fortunato up, but if the wall was still wet, why didn't Fortunato push the bricks out? If they were wet, they could have been pushed.
He
They
stapled
weren't.
in. He can't reach.
Yeah.
He gives you the depths of the. It's interesting.
That's true.
He
That's
gives you
true.
the depth of the recess.
Yeah.
That physically he can't reach the wall.
That's true.
But the other part of it, yeah, the other great part of it is that it's one of these things is that this is also one of Poe's funniest stories, and I didn't even realize this was a laugh line until one of the first times Sarah and I performed it.
Mhm.
And you get to the point, and he's describing the recess where he's going to, and he's giving you the dimensions of a coffin. And he says, the recess was about 6 feet in height.
Yeah.
About 3.
Never realized that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the audience picked up on it. The audience all of a sudden was laughing. And I thought, why are they laughing? And I think, oh, that's right. He's giving. What's this recess like? What does this remind you of anything? What he's describing? So this is also as grim and cold-hearted as this story is. It's also one of his funniest stories.
Yeah.
Got a lot of moments of humor in it.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is, I'm not going to die of a cough. It's brilliant.
It's a double laugh line.
Yeah.
Because you've had this whole thing where the Montreal keeps saying, let's go back. Your health is precious. I cannot be responsible. You are a man to be missed. For me, it's a mere nothing. And he keeps baiting him. He keeps drawing him in deeper and deeper. And then finally, that wonderful line where Fortunato says about the cough, he says, it is a mere nothing. I shall not die of a cough. And when we perform that, the audience laughs. As soon as, Sarah, who does the voice of Fortunato, when we do it, the audience laughs. But then I come back with the line, true. And they fall out of their chairs at this point. And the reason is because Poe is not only being funny, and he's not only joking, he's letting you in on the joke.
Yeah.
It's like he's actually breaking the fourth wall and winking at you at this point.
Yes.
So, he's very sly in this story. The moments of humor run throughout,
Yeah, I agree. Jeanie, don't you have a theory kind of when he is pulling, just those kind of like, as Mark just said, kind of baiting him going down the stairs? Didn't you kind of have a theory of the hopefulness of maybe he's changing his mind?
Yeah, because every time he's baiting him when he's mourning, it's like part of him, it's that you can see the struggle where he's trying to get him to say, dude, I'm leading you to your death. I'm giving you the opportunity to say no. But you keep telling me, no, it's okay. And you keep going. So you're just like you're telling me it's okay that I'm about to kill you. So in the story, every time he keeps asking him his questions, and it's like, yeah, he's baiting him to tell him to stop. To he knows he's about to do something that he cannot turn away from, but he has no remorse for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point. The point is he's trying to get Fortunato to have some semblance of understanding. I'm going to do something, but you're okay with it, so we're going to continue on because you won't tell me no. You don't realize how stupid you are, basically, because it seems like he's putting it in a perspective of you're just really so wrapped up in yourself that you're not understanding that you have insulted me. You have, struck against my personal, my personality or my personage to the point to where I have to take offense and I have to take revenge. And you're okay with it because I keep asking you and you're just like, okay, whatever. So I'm going to be happy when I stick you in this coffin and wall you up. But like Mark was saying, this is one of the ones that I've always seen that if Poe ever was a playwright, this was the closest that he ever got to, because he builds it in the reader's mind with that dramatic point of view. Because this is the only story that I've read with Poe to where I'm yelling at the readers and the people in the story saying, don't do it. Say no, stupid. It's like when you watch a horror movie, don't open the door. Don't go down in the basement. And you're yelling at Fortunato going, dude, say no. Go away. You're going to die. So this right here is one of the perfect examples of if he was ever writing a story that was going to be shown as a horror story or as a play, that you would have that dramatic audience performance yelling at him, "Don't do it! Turn around! Don't pick up the gun! Go away!" But they continue, and I'm like with you, Dr. Jeff, where he is confessing his sins on his deathbed, and deathbed confessions are, especially during this time frame, like Mark was saying, quintessential for the Catholics. You have to ask forgiveness in order to get into heaven. Honestly, you ask for it, but do you actually have to feel like you have done something wrong and have remorse? Yeah, that's kind of a fine line. Because, it's like, do I really feel bad that I killed him? Probably not. Do I want people to know that I did it so I can ask God's forgiveness that I did it? Not really that I'm asking Fortunato, "Hey, dude, I'm really sorry that I killed you, but I really don't care because you deserve to die." Okay. But I want God to forgive me because you deserve to die. Okay. It's like that. One of the things, that's the only thing. And a deathbed confession is like, you're about to face your maker. So, yeah. I'm going to ask, please forgive me, let me into heaven. I don't want to burn in hell for the rest of eternity. So that was to me. And it's like, yeah, dude, way to go for the deathbed confessions. There we go.
Will added, you get chills and you get laughs. Prime entertainment. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with Jeanie in the sense of, and with Mark. There's like kind of like that built-in duplicity. Is he saying, "Hey, turn back for his own good or for the good of Fortunato?" Because it could be kind of like, "Hey, do you not want to turn around?" Because he knows he's going to get walled up. So when he's sitting there dying, he's like, "Hey, he actually gave me that out and I didn't take it because I'm a selfish jerk egomaniac." And he really shows with a little bit that he is an egomaniac when he's like, "Oh, there's no way you're a Mason," because that's like the elite group, It's like, "Oh, well, you can't be part of this elite group. Only I can be part of this elite group." And they make a joke out of it when he brings out his little trowel or whatnot. But I mean, it really shows that Fortunato was super condescending, like, so he deserves what he got. You know what I mean? But I thought maybe it could be like he is saying to him, like, "Hey, are you sure you want to turn back?" Knowing that he'll never turn back until he gets to taste that wine. So he kind of just digs himself or walls him up himself. It was his own greed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like his narcissistic ego is what truly kills him. It's not Montresor who kills him. It's his own ego, his own what's the word? His own pridefulness.
Yeah.
Is what took him to his death.
Hubris.
It wasn't
Hubris.
Montresor. Yeah, his own hubris. Thank you. I knew it was started with an H. I just couldn't think of it.
That's all right.
That's why we have each other as backup. You're my, it's yeah, his own hubris is what killed him. It wasn't Montresor. And so when he's asking forgiveness, is like I said, is he truly remorseful for what he did, or is he just asking forgiveness so he can, get into the mansions and the gold streets of heaven?
Yeah.
So it's one of those Poe genius tips of, you make the choice. You see where the justice lies. Are you Montresor or are you Fortunato?
Yeah.
Are you accepting for Montresor or are you accepting for Fortunato? Do you feel bad for one or the other?
Absolutely. And I think kind of what Mark was saying too, when it is acted, that motivation of how you do want to play, is he guilty, feeling guilty, or is he just bragging?
Yep.
It would be interesting to see kind of both sides of it, to see how somebody would play the feeling, the guilty side of it.
And plus, like with Mark, when they do the performances of the Cask and the Telltale Heart and those kinds of things, they are putting their own versions and visions into it and acting it out. So they're giving us yet another version of the story from how you interpret Poe.
Yeah.
So then the audience is now not just the reader, but also an audience member and a part of your experience. Your reading. because the way I read something is not going to be the same way as somebody else reads something. The way I interpret something, and Carmen and I have had this discussion, and that's one of the things as a teacher, we know that not every teacher teaches the same. There are no cookie cutters when it comes to teaching. You can't be, because we're all individuals. We all interpret things differently. We all look at things in a different point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how our point of view comes across. And Poe, that's one of the things that I love about his genius, is because it's like you see Poe's point of view, but he's still allowing you your point of view in the story.
Yeah.
So it's a double whammy, because you're like, I love it. That's why some of his stories you can truly fall into and fall in love with. And then other stories, like Some Words with a Mummy, that you can fall out of love and into a, vicious cycle of wanting to burn it and run him down, and he's dead. Okay.
Mark and Leela, I imagine you saw or heard Dark Shadows star Jonathan Frid perform the Cask of Amontillado and the
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
in his one-man shows of dramatic readings.
Oh, yes.
He did a great job, and I often read aloud The Telltale Heart to my classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the Cask of Amontillado once to a class.
Very cool.
So
Very cool.
it's fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. And, I mean, one of the things that, we were talking about motivation and how Montresor presents himself. Montresor almost presents himself as a magician. And because remember, he tells you what the trick is going to be. He tells you up front what he's going to do, and then he tells you how he's going to do it.
Yeah.
He says right at the beginning, he had a weak point, this Fortunato. And he prided himself on his connoisseurship of wine.
Yeah.
Now he's telling you, I'm going to play on this guy's vanity. I'm going to play on this guy's ego. That's how I'm going to get him. That's how I'm going to lure him in. And he even presents it. There's that wonderful moment where he talks about bringing Fortunato back to his palazzo, and there were no servants around.
Mm-hmm.
And why aren't there any servants there? Because he has told them that he is not going to be back until the following morning, and that they must not he gave them strict orders not to leave the house. And then he says, as like the magician, he says, I knew that this was sufficient to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. And you can almost see him taking the magician's bow. I made them disappear.
Yeah.
I made sure there were no witnesses. And then what is his trick? What is he doing? He's going to make Fortunato disappear.
Yeah.
It's what he's going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is how I'm going. And he tells you, I'm going to play on his vanity. That's how I'm going to make this do. For an act, that gives you an awful lot to play. Form this. It just gives you so much to play. So it really is, like it's a very rich. It's a very rich brew that Poe gives you here. So I love this story, even though, to me, because it makes you wonder. I mean, he writes this is one of his last great short stories. But he writes one more really good short story before he has this kind of triumphant return to poetry at the end. But the last great story, it's another revenge tale, and it's Hop Frog.
Yeah.
And Hop Frog is kind of because there's no question whose side you're on in Hop Frog.
Yeah.
There's you want this one to work. You want this guy to get his revenge and get the hell out of there. And the payoff in Hop Frog is more grisly and more gruesome than Cask of Amontillado.
That is true.
But it's interesting that like his two last great short stories were both revenge tales. I mean, again, I that I don't know, but they are the two of his best stories, and they're both they show up on most top 10 lists for people.
That's true. And the one, to me, the one unfortunate thing, at least in the county that I work in Tennessee, Cask of Amontillado is not in our current curriculum. Like the sophomores read Fall of the House of Usher, freshmen only has Annabelle Lee, and I add some other things in because I have to. But and we're allowed to do that, but we have to stick to the script kind of. But our sophomore lead teacher was asking me, she was like, give me some more Poe stories that build suspense. And this is one of the ones I suggested. I'm like, you can't get a better suspense story than this one. And she goes, oh, that's a good one. But I think it's a shame that more of his work is not in our curriculum. And I can't remember what our juniors read because it's all American literature, but I think it may even, I think it's The Raven, but I think they actually do it in middle school. But this story should be taught in school. It's so good.
Do they get the black cat at some point?
No.
Really?
I have never, let's see, this is my 20th year in education, but when I taught, because I taught history first, and then when I started teaching English, we did Fall of the House of Usher, we did Mask of the Red Death, Raven, Annabelle Lee, Dream Within a Dream. I think that's pretty much it. And so, yeah, Black Cat is never, at least in the curriculum I've been involved in 2 counties, we have not taught the Black Cat.
There is a similarity to the Telltale Heart. I can see why, you know, if you have one.
Oh, yeah, Telltale Heart is also usually in middle school as well. I forgot about that. Yes. Yeah, it's just interesting. And, you know, and there are so many stories to choose from, but you would think that, again, like the sophomore literature, their first 9 weeks is about suspense. I forget their like actual theme, but that's why they do Fall of the House of Usher. And it's like, why are they not adding Cask of Amontillado into our textbook? It's just bizarre.
Do they? I'm going to ask questions because this is
Yeah.
great. Do they get Pit and the Pendulum?
No.
Really?
That used to be one that we taught, not as popular. I'm trying to think. I think freshmen used to do that back when I was teaching English before I became an administrator. I have a weird career. I did history, I taught English, then I was an administrator, and now I'm back to the classroom because I missed teaching and just got tired of the administration.
Let's not talk about weird careers, please.
Yeah. Yeah, but we won't talk about that. But anyway, I'm very happy back in the classroom. Probably never should have left. But yeah, it's bizarre what the textbook companies, like this is Pearson's curriculum, and Pearson has some great things, and some of the other works of literature that we read are fantastic. But I'm disappointed in the Poe choices. They need to amp them up.
I believe the Pit and the Pendulum is in the Norton Anthology of World Literature.
Okay.
When I was teaching honors world literature at TSU, that one was in our book.
Okay.
We read that, and then we watched Vincent Price perform it in his hour-long concert, An Evening of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good. And Dr. Jeff, I was going to ask you, Jonathan Frid's performance, can you get that on YouTube or anywhere?
I imagine it might be on YouTube, but it's on some of the Dark Shadows compilation DVDs.
Okay, I'll have to look for that. I would love to see that.
Yeah,
I love him. He is amazing.
I don't think he ever recorded the Cask of Amontillado. I've just seen him do that in person, but he did perform the Telltale Heart on the New Jersey network, the network of PBS stations in New Jersey, one of the first stations to bring back Dark Shadows in the mid-'80s. And it was on a VHS tape. And then for legal reasons, it was in limbo for a while. But now I believe it is on the big coffin set of all of the Dark Shadows episodes. And there are several DVDs on there of nothing but all of the extras.
Okay. Oh, very cool. Okay. I'll have to check that out. Let's see. Will just posted. Did you find it, Will, on YouTube? Yeah. He just posted it.
Oh, he found the Cask of Amontillado. Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. He posted it in the chat. So thank you. Thank you. Yes. Definitely check that out. Well, we're getting close to kind of our close to our ending time. Does anybody else have anything to add? Because Mark has a special recitation he's going to do that we talked about. You remember the poem we talked about?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm ready to go at any point.
Okay.
I've been asked
Yeah.
to this, but I believe we said El Dorado, right?
Yes, we did. And
You better.
yes, and that's Jeannie's absolute favorite Poe poem. So she was
Yes.
ecstatic when I told her about that when we were emailing. So
I was like, booyah.
yeah.
I'm
So
there.
does anybody else have anything about any more about Cask of Amontillado?
Will you like it too? Yay.
It's an awesome poem.
Well, one thing I'd set up the Mass El Dorado for a specific reason, which is, again, this is a late work for Poe. This is one that he wrote this. He dies in 1849, obviously, and something else that happened in 1849, the discovery of gold in California, the 49ers.
Yep.
The 49ers are kind of known. The year that Poe dies, and everybody is heading out. It's early. Actually, gold is discovered at Sutter's Mill in late 1848, and that sparked this mass exodus of people trying to seek gold in California. And Poe watched this. Actually, he was observing this. El Dorado kind of comes out of watching everybody going off to seek for the city of gold, if you will, and he was a bit amused by it. But there's a companion piece to El Dorado, which is he wrote a letter to a friend as he was watching all these people head out. And this is taken from the letter. He said, talking of gold and temptations, the true riches for a writer are love, fame, the dominion of intellect, the consciousness of power, the thrilling sense of beauty, the free air of heaven, exercise of mind and body, with the physical and moral health that result. If this is what a writer cares for, why would he go to California? And then he sat down and he writes El Dorado.
Wow.
So, basically, and El Dorado, this is up to a lot of interpretations. And one of the Silverman in his biography thought that El Dorado was about death, and I don't agree. I think El Dorado is about the journey being as important as actually getting to your destination. So, with that, a little number called El Dorado, and it goes something like this.
Right.
Gaily bedight, a gallant knight, in sunshine and in shadow, had journeyed along, singing a song, in search of El Dorado. But he grew old, this knight so bold, and o'er his heart a shadow fell, as he found no spot of ground that looked like El Dorado. And as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim shadow. Shadow, said he, where can it be, this land of El Dorado? Over the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow, ride, boldly ride, the shade replied, if you seek for El Dorado. And I think, again, what he's saying is, if you ride, boldly ride, the destination is maybe you get there, maybe you don't, but it's the journey. And I disagree with a lot of the interpretations of El Dorado. I think it's a very life-affirming poem, not a poem about death. But there you go. As we said before, everybody's got their take on this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. That was amazing.
Yes, it was.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be just amazing. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's not my favorite poem to perform is Annabelle Lee. It's not even.
Oh yes.
But
It's so
this is a
good.
fun. But we'd be here for 15 minutes if we do Annabelle Lee. But
I'm fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh.
I'll tell you, the toughest thing about Annabelle Lee is not the emotional steps. That's the tough part of the Raven. The Raven is a tough piece to do.
Yeah.
But the tough piece about Annabelle Lee is Poe is so precise in his use of words, and he uses this and that and this and that over and over again.
Mhm.
Try to, and there's only one way to do it, and you got to get it cold. You've got to get it absolutely cold.
Yep.
This was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, you have to know where the this is and the that's come in, because he can throw you down really fast. And there's a lot of repetition.
That's true.
It's close, but it's not exact. So
Yeah.
Poe doesn't let you off the hook. You have to know the emotional count, the rhythm count, and the actual words perfect. And
Absolutely.
if you've got something wrong in the Raven, the whole room's gonna know it.
Yes,
It's got a
you are so
jangle.
right.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows it. I mean, and when there's a wrong word. So, and that's another one, because you get to that, like the third verse, and you go, is it rapping or tapping at this point?
Exactly.
It's like you have the audience members all becoming ravens, and they're about to throw things at you, not really knocking or rapping anything if you get it wrong, because it's like they're gonna attack.
Well,
and especially the first 4 or 5, because you know how many people had to memorize the first 4 or 5 stanzas of the Raven in school, right? And in up here, it's still there. So if you get anything wrong in those first 4 or 5, they're really gonna nail it.
absolutely.
The Raven, Annabelle Lee, and the Gettysburg Address. Those were the 3 main ones I had to learn in 6th grade, and I'm going, and I'll never forget them to this day. Thank you.
And stopping by woods on a snowy evening. That was
the Robert.
I had to memorize the prologue to the it was, I think, the prologue. No.
Ooh, Hamlet's speech. I forgot that one too.
I was going to say the Canterbury Tales in Middle English. In Middle English. And recite it in front of the class.
Oh.
And so Walnutsute with its Paurus Indre, and it's I still remember part of it. I don't remember all of it, but yeah. And the tomorrow speech from Macbeth.
No, to be or not to be was the speech we had to recite and memorize, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be how many times are we going to kill each other by saying to be or not to be in this classroom?
Oh yeah.
It's like,
adding on to the Raven, on last Saturday night, Sven Gulli out of Chicago showed the Raven and with Vincent Price and Peter Lorre. And as Vincent Price was reciting, I was like reciting with him. And of course I didn't get it all right, but I love to practice whenever I hear it.
I don't notice lips moving with me when I do it, but the one place where they do move their lips are the Nevermores.
Yes.
It's like the whole audience together, like, it's like all together now.
Yes.
Well, it's right up there with the Sweet Caroline, it's like Sweet Caroline.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's like nevermore. There we go.
Well, before we end this evening, we wanted to just kind of give a heads up of what we're planning for 2024 for Poe Unplugged. So January. Jeannie.
What? I'm just saying. It's already a new
journey of El Dorado.
I am.
All right.
I'm still looking for my gold. So, okay.
That's right. January 30th, the last Tuesday of the month. We already kind of told, I think, that we're going to do Murders in the Rue Morgue. And we may have a special guest for that. Still just we haven't got a full confirmation yet, but we're also going to add, and this was something that Jeannie and I have been kind of going back and forth with, trying to decide when to do it. But we're going to actually add another Poe Unplugged for January on Tuesday, the 16th. And if you want to talk about the TV show, The Fall of the House of Usher, and all of the Poe nuggets and things, we thought that would be kind of a fun way to do it. Instead of she and you just listening to us banter back and forth about it, we thought, let's have a group effort on this one.
Yeah, let's do a group banter. It's fun.
February is probably going to be poetry, but we haven't confirmed that yet.
That February
March
27th.
let's see. Yes. And then Leela, thank you so much for your input. And Keith also gave some suggestions on the
Oh, you're welcome.
registration page. And so we took your suggestions at heart and we're adding all this in. So Keith had suggested, why don't we discuss, instead of like kind of take a break from talking about a story or a poem and talk about the myths and legends around Poe's death. And so we're going to do that in March. And so that will be, I'll go ahead and give dates. Let's see.
I'd say Mark's going to have to join us for that.
I
Yeah,
know.
Mark's gonna have to buy. Mark's gonna have to come back for that one.
because
I would
he
love
wrote
it
the
if
book
you
on it.
would. So that's going to be March 26th. And then let's see, April. Leela, I can't remember. Did you suggest the oval portrait or Pym?
Pym.
That's
but
right.
Oval
Okay.
portrait would be good too.
Okay,
Yes.
so Keith had suggested about Poe's death. April, we're going to do the oval portrait, which is the other one that Keith suggested. And
April
then
30th.
correct. Yes, April 30th. And then May took Leela's suggestion of doing Arthur Gordon Pym, the narrative of. We decided we didn't want to do Pym too soon because it is his, one novel and it does take a little bit longer to read than a short story. That would give everybody plenty of time to get it read. So Leela, thank you for that. That's
You're
awesome.
welcome.
Yeah, we love, guys, we love for y'all to suggest things because it just, we want to do things that you want to do. So
Now, since May is Memorial Day, Memorial Day is the 27th.
Yeah.
Do we want to do the 28th or do we want to do it the Tuesday before Memorial Day?
All right. It might be better to do the 21st.
Yeah,
because
so that would be.
I've got a daughter-in-law getting married on the 25th. So the 21st.
Yeah, because I couldn't remember where they changed it to. Because I thought they were changing it to August or something.
They are doing September, like this big reception thing, but they're doing the actual ceremony. They're keeping it the 25th. So it's a long story. I'll have to catch you up.
Well, children. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So yes.
So the 21st, the week
21st.
before.
Yeah, and of course we'll advertise and remind everybody. So we've kind of got the first half of the year planned out, and we always like to tell you guys first because you're our loyal Poe Unpluggers.
Exactly.
And we love you. So
well, I'm a tough get. You just have to ask me.
Yeah,
March
Mark.
March, if I'm available, and March 26th, I should be available.
Okay.
Okay.
The end of that week, I'm actually doing a bit of a little mini tour. That Thursday, I'm in Fredericksburg.
Oh, cool.
We talk at the University of Mary Washington for their biographies, Great Lives talk on Poe.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Night, I'm at the Poe Museum in Richmond.
Okay.
We do that, which will be nice because they were really, one of the primary people who helped with the book. They were Chris there and everybody were just really wonderful.
Yeah,
so,
and actually, the 27th of December, we just did an interview with Chris, and that'll be out on December 27th.
Yep. I think anybody. Chris is one of those guys who anybody who gets into Poe he's in their acknowledgments. He's
yeah,
he's one of the first people everybody finds, and with good reason, and also because their collection is amazing.
It is.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you look at what the Philadelphia has, or the cottage in the Bronx has, and they don't really have much in the way of collections. But it's odd that Richmond has the one house that's got nothing to do with Poe.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yet they've got the best collection and the best archive and the best holdings.
Yeah, they do. It anytime, if you haven't been there, definitely make a trip. It is awesome. And just the city itself is a lot of fun. It's really neat. And we did not get to go to the cemeteries. And that's one thing I want to do when we go back is go back to the museum, but also go to some of the cemeteries where many of the Poe relatives and acquaintances, enemies, everything else are buried.
Yeah, well, almost all of them are in one cemetery, except for his mother. His mother is at the church.
Yes, yes.
So, where Patrick Henry made his famous speech. She's in that little churchyard. So there's a nice little monument to Eliza.
Is it St. John's? Is it
I
St.
believe it
John's?
is.
Okay.
I should know that right off the top, but I believe it is St. John. And then the
Although,
cemetery's got a weird, like Shaco Cemetery, something like
Yeah,
that.
Chaco Hill, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where John Allen and Francis and all they're in that
Yeah.
cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and when we're talking about certain myths and rumors and stuff, and you were mentioning Patrick Henry, yes, he did a speech there, but his famous saying, "Give me liberty or give me death," they never actually confirmed he said it. They've actually came up with the idea that they found in some journals that his nephew or someone actually made that up when they were doing an interview and said that he said, "Give me liberty or give me death." So it's like one of those things to where, because that's part of what I used to teach. So I always had to come up and look up all this stuff and said, hey, just like with Poe, you got 3 different ideas of people coming out with how he died. And so now they're saying that it's not that he didn't give a speech, it's that those particular words weren't in the speech.
Yeah.
There's no recording and there's no,
Exactly.
journalistic account of it or anything like that. So there's no way
Yeah.
to prove it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like one of those things that kind of used in the good old hurrah when they're talking about the pre-revolution. So
Absolutely.
it's good.
Well, Mark,
All right, we're not going to get into the history.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't digress, Jeanie. We have to reel her in in a good way.
Sorry.
But Mark, we will definitely send a reminder maybe around February. Would that work? Just to kind of make sure, because we would love to have you come back.
If I'm not on the road, I'll be here.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Great. Okay. Well, anybody else have anything to add? Well, thank you guys so much. And Mark, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to be sending you links to the video and the audio here probably by tomorrow. And we have enjoyed spending as much time as we have with you.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Well, and and before we go I have a special little guest who is going to join us. And we want to say Merry Pomas.
Edgar Allan, ho, ho, ho.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I love that card.
Oh, thank you.
So great.
Yes, thank you.
Did everybody get your cards?
Yes.
Okay,
I got it today. I never checked my mail, so thank you.
I didn't get one. Oh, that's right. I didn't send one. Okay.
You signed them all. I felt when
I signed them.
I took them over to Jeannie's house and I was like, okay, here, do your presidential signage.
I was like, good luck reading it. So there we go.
Oh. But anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all the things.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes. So thanks
Be
again.
safe, and we'll see you 2024.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Everybody.
Happy holidays.
Yes.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays.
Yeah, I think Will had already jumped off.
Bells. Have you stopped recording?
Oh no.
Okay. I was like,
I'm gonna keep that in there, Jeannie.